A Republican congressional office that defended Trump for 8 years just issued a statement breaking ranks. Not because of typical political theatre, not because of poll numbers falling in some distant district. A senior GOP aide said it themselves. This is chaotic even by Trump-era standards. I'm Elizabeth Carter, and this is independent investigative journalism. Before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell. Leave a comment below telling me if you've noticed your own representatives starting to distance themselves from Trump. Share this video with everyone you know. This is the only official channel following evidence wherever it leads. What I'm about to show you is happening in real time across Washington, and it's spreading. Here's the core argument tonight in plain language. The Washington power structure is experiencing a seismic shift as Trump faces a convergence of institutional resistance, declining approval ratings, and fracturing Republican unity. This isn't about politics, it's about power. And tonight, I'm going to walk you through the congressional data, the polling numbers, and the insider testimonies so you can see exactly how we got here and who's about to eat the cost. Within the last 36 hours, something unprecedented happened. Multiple Republican sources confirmed that key GOP lawmakers are no longer returning Trump's calls. That's not normal political disagreement. That's institutional breakdown. A 25-year Capitol Hill veteran told reporters, "We've seen presidents lose Congress before. We've never seen Congress lose a president this way." Let that sink in. What we're witnessing isn't the usual back and forth between branches of government. This is the machinery of American democracy showing stress fractures in real time. The same Republicans who rubber-stamped Trump's agenda for months are now openly questioning his directives on everything from military funding to federal emergency declarations. Think about that for a moment. The party that built its identity around unwavering Trump loyalty is fracturing from the inside out, and the cracks are showing up in ways that can't be spun or explained away. When your own party stops taking your phone calls, that's not a communications problem. That's a power problem. And it gets worse. The numbers don't lie, and tonight they're telling a story that should make everyone pay attention. Trump's approval rating just hit 38% overall. That's underwater by any measure. But here's what's really shocking. His approval on the economy, the issue he built his entire political brand around, just dropped to 36%. Translation: the American people are rejecting Trump's core message in real time. But wait, there's something they're not telling you about what's happening behind closed doors in Congress. Last Thursday, the Senate fired a warning shot that nobody saw coming. In a bipartisan vote, they advanced a resolution to block Trump from using military force within or against Venezuela, unless he gets prior approval from Congress. Let me translate what prior approval from Congress actually means for presidential power. It means Congress is taking back war powers they've let presidents control for decades. When senators from both parties unite to restrict a president's military authority, that's not normal political pushback. That's institutional intervention. And this isn't isolated. 3 House Republicans announced retirements this month alone. These aren't backbenchers or moderates looking for an exit strategy. These are committee chairs and ranking members who've defended Trump through everything. A senior GOP fundraiser told reporters the donor class is spooked. Major conservative donors are withholding funding until the administration stabilizes. Think about that. The money that powers Republican campaigns is drying up because the people writing the checks don't trust Trump to deliver stability. That's not ideology, that's economics. Here's the irony that should make everyone angry. The same party that once followed Trump's every directive is now questioning his basic decision-making capacity. House conservatives who voted to overturn the 2020 election just joined with Democrats to block future strikes on Venezuela without congressional approval. Translation: Trump's own people don't trust him with the military. Within the last 2 weeks, we've documented a pattern that can't be explained away as normal political friction. Republican senators refusing to defend Trump's emergency powers expansion. House members skipping White House meetings they would have attended 6 months ago. Conservative think tanks publishing policy papers that directly contradict administration positions. A senior GOP aide described the current atmosphere as chaotic even by Trump-era standards. The White House has struggled to fill key vacancies as potential nominees fear reputational damage from association with an administration in freefall. Let that sink in. People are turning down jobs in the White House because they're afraid it will hurt their careers. When was the last time you heard of Republicans running away from Republican power? And the math gets worse when you look at what's happening in the courts, in the states, and inside Trump's own inner circle. Because what I'm about to show you next proves this isn't just political theatre. This is systemic breakdown happening in real time. Here's how the dominoes are falling, and once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. First domino. Congressional resistance to Venezuela military action spreads to other foreign policy areas. The Senate vote wasn't just about one country or one conflict. It was Congress saying we're taking back control of war powers, period. Within 72 hours, House committees started questioning Trump's authority on Syria deployments, NATO commitments, and Pacific Fleet positioning. Second domino. House conservatives joining with Democrats on strike authorization votes. These are the same Republicans who spent years attacking Democrats as weak on national security. Now they're voting together to restrict a Republican president's military power. A House Armed Services member told reporters, "We can't keep writing blank checks for military adventures we don't understand." Translation, even Trump's most loyal supporters don't trust his judgment on war and peace. Third domino. Administrative chaos as nominees fear reputational damage, leaving key positions unfilled. The Pentagon has 3 acting deputy secretaries because confirmed nominees withdrew their names. The State Department is running on skeleton staff because career diplomats are requesting transfers. A former Trump administration official said it themselves. Nobody wants to be the last person holding the bag when this implodes. But wait. There's something happening in the courts that nobody is talking about. Multiple federal courts have ruled against Trump's expansion of presidential powers. Not liberal judges, not Obama appointees. Trump-appointed judges are ruling against Trump policies. The Fifth Circuit, traditionally the most conservative appeals court in the country, just blocked his emergency tariff authority. And this next part is going to blow your mind. The Supreme Court is preparing to rule on whether Trump can use emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs without congressional approval. Legal experts are predicting a 6-3 ruling against the administration. Think about that. A conservative Supreme Court is about to strip power from a conservative president. Now watch the domino effect cascade into state governments. Republican governors in Texas, Florida, and Georgia are openly defying federal attempts to override state artificial intelligence regulations. These aren't blue state resistance movements. These are red state Republicans telling a Republican president to back off. The federal funding freeze that Trump announced last month just hit a brick wall in Congress. Both chambers are moving to override his attempts to withhold appropriated funds from states that don't comply with immigration enforcement demands. Senate Majority Leader told reporters, "The power of the purse belongs to Congress, not the White House." Translation, they're taking away his ability to punish states financially. Here's where it becomes undeniable. Every institution designed to check presidential overreach is activating simultaneously. Courts blocking executive orders, Congress reasserting war powers, states refusing federal mandates. Career civil servants slow-walking implementation of controversial policies. A constitutional law professor at Georgetown said it themselves. This is what the founders designed the system to do when one branch accumulates too much power. The question is whether Trump understands that he's fighting the Constitution itself. But wait, there's something happening in Trump's inner circle that nobody is saying out loud. The people closest to him are starting to distance themselves in ways that suggest they know something we don't. And what they know could change everything about how this story ends. Let me tell you about Sarah Mitchell, 25-year GOP staffer, worked for 3 Republican senators, survived every political earthquake Washington has thrown at her since 1999. Sarah told reporters last week, "I've seen disagreements between the White House and Congress before. I've watched parties fight over policy and power, but this feels like something breaking permanently. Let that sink in." Sarah is not alone. In the last month, I've documented stories from dozens of people inside the system watching it crack from the inside out. These aren't Democrats cheering for Trump's downfall. These are Republicans, independents, and career professionals who've spent decades serving regardless of which party held power. Meet James Rodriguez, campaign volunteer from Arizona, who's been organizing for Republican candidates since 2016. James said, "My family thinks I'm crazy for still supporting conservative principles while questioning Trump's judgment. But when your own party senators won't go on record defending the president, what are we supposed to tell voters at the door?" Translation: the people doing the actual work of politics can't explain what's happening to the people they're asking for votes. Here's what a congressional aide told me on condition of anonymity. "You can feel the tension when you walk into the building every morning. Nobody knows what crisis will break before lunch, what policy will get reversed by dinner, or which ally will announce they're keeping their distance by bedtime. I've worked for Republicans and Democrats. This isn't normal governing chaos. This is something different." Think about that for a moment. The people who make Congress function day to day are describing an atmosphere of permanent crisis management. Let me tell you about Maria Santos, small business owner from Ohio, who holds defense contracts worth $1.2 million annually. Maria said, "Policy uncertainty is killing us. We bid on projects based on regulatory frameworks that change every 3 weeks. Military procurement officers are telling us to hold off on major contracts because they don't know what the funding priorities will be next quarter." That is not abstract. That is real. Maria employs 47 people whose jobs depend on government contract stability. When defense contractors can't predict policy direction from month to month, those are real families facing real uncertainty about their economic future. And Maria is not alone. In the last 60 days, defense industry trade associations have documented contract delays affecting over 800 small businesses across 17 states. A Pentagon procurement officer told industry representatives, "We're operating in an environment where long-term planning has become impossible." Here's the pattern that should make everyone angry. The chaos at the top cascades down to people who have nothing to do with Washington power games. Sarah, the GOP staffer, wondering if her career in public service has a future. James, the campaign volunteer, struggling to explain his party's direction to neighbours and family. Maria, the business owner, watching contract uncertainty threaten her employees' livelihoods. Republican senators refusing to go on record about Trump's support isn't just political theatre. It's abandonment of the people who've been carrying water for the party at the ground level for years. When your own elected officials won't defend your work publicly, that's not strategy. That's betrayal. A political scientist at American University who predicted these 2026 midterm challenges back in 2024, told me, "What we're seeing now validates every warning about institutional stress that constitutional scholars have been raising. The system is responding exactly as designed when one branch overreaches. But the human cost of that correction is always paid by people who had no role in creating the crisis." Let that sink in. This isn't just politics, this is people. Real people with real jobs and real families watching the institutions they've served or depended on struggle to maintain basic functioning. And the ripple effects are spreading far beyond Washington. Here's what history tells us about moments like this one. When presidential power erodes this rapidly across multiple institutions simultaneously, we're not watching normal political friction. We're watching a constitutional correction in real time. The last time American institutions coordinated this kind of pushback against presidential overreach was during the final stages of the Nixon administration. But Nixon faced a hostile Democratic Congress and a liberal Supreme Court. Trump is facing resistance from his own party and judges he appointed himself. Think about that difference. The 2026 November elections now represent a potential turning point that goes far beyond typical midterm politics. Democratic strategists are positioning their campaigns around what they call breaking the imperial presidency. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. Republican strategists are quietly preparing for the same outcome. A senior GOP consultant told donors at a private briefing, "We're caught between defending a president whose approval is underwater and protecting our own electoral prospects. The math doesn't work. Either we lose with Trump or we lose Trump supporters. There's no clean exit strategy." Translation: the Republican Party is facing an existential choice between loyalty and survival. Here's where the institutional health question becomes critical for every American, regardless of party affiliation. When democratic norms break down, the damage doesn't stay contained to one presidency or one political cycle. Constitutional scholars are documenting precedents being set right now that will affect presidential power for decades. A constitutional law expert at Harvard said, "Every time Congress successfully reasserts war powers, every time courts block emergency authority overreach, every time states successfully resist federal mandates, we're re-establishing boundaries that got eroded over multiple presidencies from both parties." International allies and adversaries are watching American political instability with growing concern. NATO defense ministers are privately discussing contingency plans for reduced American leadership reliability. Chinese military strategists are calculating whether American political chaos creates opportunities for territorial expansion in the Pacific. That should make everyone angry. Our constitutional crisis is becoming other nations' strategic opportunity. But here's the math argument that cuts through all the political noise. This isn't about politics, it's about stability. And instability has a cost. Markets are responding to political chaos with increased volatility. Business investment decisions are being delayed because policy direction changes every few weeks. Consumer confidence indicators are showing uncertainty patterns typically associated with economic recession. A Federal Reserve economist told reporters, "Political instability creates economic instability. When businesses can't predict regulatory frameworks or trade policies from quarter to quarter, they stop making long-term investments. That affects job creation, wage growth, and economic expansion, regardless of which party you support." If current trends continue unchanged, we're looking at three possible scenarios. First, the November midterms flip at least one chamber of Congress to Democratic control, institutionalizing the resistance we're already seeing from Republicans. Second, Trump's approval continues declining until even safe red districts become competitive, creating a total electoral realignment. Third, institutional pressure forces changes in White House operations that effectively constrain presidential power without formal constitutional amendments. None of those scenarios restore the stable governance that businesses need to invest, that allies need to trust, or that ordinary Americans need to plan their economic futures. Here's what the warning experts are saying that should keep everyone awake at night. We're not just watching one president lose political capital. We're watching stress tests of American democratic institutions happening in real time, with no clear endpoint and no guarantee that the institutions will emerge stronger rather than permanently damaged. The trajectory we're on right now leads to one of two destinations. Either American institutions successfully contain presidential overreach and restore constitutional balance, or they fail and we discover that our system wasn't as resilient as we thought. Here's the reality nobody wants to talk about. When presidential authority erodes without clear institutional replacement, we get power vacuums. And power vacuums don't stay empty. Either Congress fills the gap, courts expand their role, states assert more independence, or we get chaos until someone or something restores order. Right now, we're living through that power vacuum in real time. Your vote in the 2026 midterms will determine which of those outcomes we get. Not because this is about supporting or opposing Trump, because this is about whether American institutions can handle constitutional crises without breaking permanently. Here's the both sides truth that everyone needs to hear. Some Trump supporters have legitimate concerns about institutional overreach from unelected judges and career bureaucrats. Some Trump opponents have legitimate concerns about presidential power being used beyond constitutional limits. We can hold both truths at once without pretending this crisis isn't happening. What we're witnessing is actually the American system working as designed. Founders created checks and balances specifically for moments when one branch accumulates too much power. Courts blocking executive overreach, Congress reasserting war powers, states resisting federal mandates. These aren't signs of democratic failure, they're signs of democratic correction. But here's what should give everyone hope. The institutions are responding. Republican senators who spent years defending Trump are now voting to constrain presidential war powers. Conservative judges appointed by Trump are ruling against Trump policies. Red state governors are defying federal mandates. The system is self-correcting even when the people running it would prefer not to rock the boat. That means the Constitution is stronger than any individual president. Yet this crisis affects your daily life whether you follow politics or not. Political chaos creates economic uncertainty. Economic uncertainty affects job creation, wage growth, and consumer prices. When businesses can't predict policy direction, they stop investing in expansion and hiring. When allies question American reliability, international trade becomes more expensive and complicated. Translation: constitutional crises have real costs for real families, regardless of party affiliation. Here's the accountability question I need you to answer in the comments. Do you think American institutions are strong enough to handle this crisis, or are we watching something break that can't be fixed? Because how you answer that question determines how you vote in November and how you talk to your neighbours about what's happening. This isn't about choosing sides in partisan warfare. This is about choosing whether you believe the American system can survive stress tests and emerge stronger, or whether you think we need to prepare for something fundamentally different. The people I've introduced you to tonight: Sarah, the GOP staffer watching her party fracture; James, the campaign volunteer struggling to explain his positions to family; Maria, the business owner dealing with contract uncertainty. They're not asking you to pick a political team, they're asking you to pay attention to what's actually happening and make informed decisions about what comes next. Here's what I need you to do right now. Subscribe to this channel for continued coverage as this story develops. Share this video with everyone you know because the mainstream media isn't connecting these dots. Leave comments that show you're thinking critically about what you're seeing rather than just reacting emotionally. This story isn't over, it's being written right now. And how it ends depends on whether we're paying attention, whether we're asking the right questions, and whether we understand that democracy requires active participation, not passive spectatorship. The institutions are holding for now. The question is whether they'll hold long enough for the American people to decide what kind of government they actually want. Because that decision is coming, whether we're ready for it or not. A Republican congressional office that defended Trump for 8 years just issued a statement breaking ranks. Not because of typical political theatre, not because of poll numbers falling in some distant district. A senior GOP aide said it themselves. This is chaotic even by Trump-era standards. I'm Elizabeth Carter and this is independent investigative journalism. Before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell. Leave a comment below telling me if you've noticed your own representatives starting to distance themselves from Trump. Share this video with everyone you know. This is the only official channel following evidence wherever it leads. What I'm about to show you is happening in real time across Washington, and it's spreading. Here's the core argument tonight in plain language. The Washington power structure is experiencing a seismic shift as Trump faces a convergence of institutional resistance, declining approval ratings, and fracturing Republican unity. This isn't about politics, it's about power. And tonight, I'm going to walk you through the congressional data, the polling numbers, and the insider testimonies so you can see exactly how we got here and who's about to eat the cost. Within the last 36 hours, something unprecedented happened. Multiple Republican sources confirmed that key GOP lawmakers are no longer returning Trump's calls. That's not normal political disagreement, that's institutional breakdown. A 25-year Capitol Hill veteran told reporters, "We've seen presidents lose Congress before. We've never seen Congress lose a president this way." Let that sink in. What we're witnessing isn't the usual back and forth between branches of government. This is the machinery of American democracy, showing stress fractures in real time. The same Republicans who rubber-stamped Trump's agenda for months are now openly questioning his directives on everything from military funding to federal emergency declarations. Think about that for a moment. The party that built its identity around unwavering Trump loyalty is fracturing from the inside out, and the cracks are showing up in ways that can't be spun or explained away. When your own party stops taking your phone calls, that's not a communications problem. That's a power problem. And it gets worse. The numbers don't lie, and tonight they're telling a story that should make everyone pay attention. Trump's approval rating just hit 38% overall. That's underwater by any measure. But here's what's really shocking. His approval on the economy, the issue he built his entire political brand around, just dropped to 36%.